In the heart of Burkina Faso, Captain Ibrahim Traoré has risen as a symbol of courage and leadership. But as he works to unite his people and protect his nation, threats loom, both seen and unseen. This is the story of how one man faced enemies in the open desert and in the shadows of power, proving that true leadership requires more than strength. It requires vision, vigilance, and unwavering courage. Captain Ibrahim Traoré attended the reopening of the Stade du Fort, 8, the largest stadium in Ouagadougou, after months of renovation aimed at giving the venue a fresh, modern look. The event was more than just a sports celebration. It was a powerful symbol of resilience for the people of Burkina Faso. The stadium was packed with thousands of citizens waving flags, chanting slogans, and singing patriotic songs. Many wore t-shirts with Traoré's face printed on them, a sign of how deeply his leadership had inspired hope in the nation. The air was filled with the sound of traditional drums mixed with the roar of vuvuzelas, creating an electric atmosphere. Traoré arrived in a convoy of military vehicles, stepping out in his trademark red beret and camouflage uniform. His presence instantly ignited the crowd, and chants of "Traoré, Traoré" echoed through the stands. He waved and smiled, moving confidently toward the podium placed at the center of the pitch. Before him stood an audience of athletes, government officials, cultural leaders, and citizens from all walks of life. This reopening wasn't just about sports. It was a statement that Burkina Faso was standing tall despite external pressures and internal challenges. Traoré paused, scanning the faces in the crowd, as if to let the significance of the moment sink in before he spoke. But just before he took the microphone, a sudden movement caught the attention of his security team. Two men in the front row began arguing fiercely, shoving each other as the crowd tried to pull them apart. The commotion quickly drew the eyes of everyone nearby. Traoré's security detail moved in swiftly, surrounding their leader while other guards rushed toward the disturbance. For a brief moment, the festive atmosphere turned tense. Whispers rippled through the audience. Some feared it might be an assassination attempt, while others thought it was a petty fight blown out of proportion. The men were dragged out of the stadium, their shouts fading into the distance. Traoré remained calm, hands clasped behind his back, watching everything unfold with sharp, measured eyes. Once the situation was under control, he stepped forward to the microphone. His voice boomed across the stadium speakers. "My people, nothing can distract us from our unity and our victory. Today is a day for celebration, not division. We rebuild not just stadiums, but our pride, our dignity, and our future." The crowd erupted in cheers, the earlier incident already forgotten in the wave of renewed excitement. Traoré spoke for nearly 20 minutes, touching on sports as a tool for national unity, plans for youth development, and his commitment to ensuring Burkina Faso's independence from foreign control. After his speech, a dazzling cultural performance began, traditional dancers in colorful attire, acrobats flipping in the air, and musicians pounding out rhythms that echoed through the night sky. The pitch was soon filled with young football players, ready to play the inaugural match on the freshly renovated field. But as the game kicked off, one of Traoré's closest aides leaned in to whisper something urgent in his ear. His expression darkened slightly, and he nodded without responding. Far from the noise of the stadium, in a quiet corner of Ouagadougou, something was unfolding that could change the country's future. In a dimly lit warehouse on the outskirts of the city, a group of men sat around a large wooden table. Maps, documents, and encrypted communication devices were spread out before them. The leader of the group, a tall man with a scar running from his forehead to his jaw, slammed his fist onto the table. "He's gaining too much support. If Traoré continues like this, our plans will be useless," he said in a low, dangerous voice. These were not ordinary citizens. They were part of a network with deep ties to foreign interests, people who had long benefited from Burkina Faso's instability. The reopening of the Stade du Fort, 8, with its massive show of unity, had rattled them. Traoré's growing popularity was now a direct threat to their influence. Back at the stadium, Traoré continued to shake hands and pose for photographs, his smile masking the weight of the whispered message from his aide. He had been informed of suspicious activities in several key districts, movements of men and weapons that suggested something bigger than a simple protest or political maneuver. When the final whistle blew, ending the match, the celebrations erupted again. Fireworks lit up the night sky, and the stadium roared with joy. But as soon as Traoré exited the venue, his convoy didn't head straight to the presidential residence. Instead, it veered off toward a secured military compound. Inside, high-ranking officers were already waiting. Spread out on the briefing table were satellite images and intercepted communications pointing to a coordinated operation planned for the coming weeks. They want to strike during the Independence Day celebrations, one officer explained gravely. Traoré's jaw tightened. Then we will strike first. Orders were issued immediately. Special units were to be deployed discreetly, informants activated, and allies across the borders contacted. Traoré knew that this was not just about protecting himself, but about safeguarding the spirit of unity his people had just begun to reclaim. Meanwhile, in the warehouse, the scar-faced man lit a cigarette and smirked. Let him enjoy his stadium. Soon, he'll have bigger problems than football. Unbeknownst to both sides, there was a third player in the shadows, someone who had access to both camps, someone whose loyalty no one could truly confirm. This shadowy figure was known only as the Whisper. No one knew his real name, not even those who paid him. He moved between camps like a ghost, collecting secrets and selling them to the highest bidder. The Whisper had been inside the warehouse just hours earlier, listening silently from a corner while the scar-faced man laid out his plan. He had also been seen, though never recognized, near the military compound, overhearing key parts of Traoré's counter-strategy. Now, sitting in a small tea shop deep in Ouagadougou's old quarter, he scribbled in a worn leather notebook the details of two opposing worlds intertwining on the same pages. Meanwhile, at the military compound, Traoré sat with his most trusted advisors. They had identified 3 possible targets for the enemy's planned strike: 2 government buildings and 1 power station that supplied electricity to much of the capital. If taken out, the chaos would be immense. We cannot wait for them to make the first move, Traoré said firmly. We will disrupt their operations before they even take shape. Plans were put into motion that night. Undercover operatives slipped into neighborhoods known for housing the enemy's recruits. Military trucks moved under the cover of darkness, stopping in discreet locations. A special intelligence team was tasked with finding the source of leaked information. Someone inside the system was feeding details to the enemy, and Traoré wanted that person found. Back at the warehouse, the scar-faced man was on the phone with an unknown foreign contact. His tone was cold, businesslike. The Independence Day chaos will open the door for your people to move in. But I want guarantees. Once Traoré is out of the way, I run things here. The foreign voice on the other end replied, Deliver us the control we seek, and Burkina Faso will be yours to govern with our guidance. What neither of them realized was that the Whisper, seated just a few tables away at the tea shop, had already sent an encrypted message to another number, one that belonged to someone who might not be on either side entirely. And as dawn began to break over Ouagadougou, a convoy of unmarked vehicles was seen leaving the outskirts, heading toward an undisclosed desert location where a meeting was about to take place, one that could change the course of the entire nation. The convoy moved fast, kicking up trails of red dust as it disappeared into the vast Sahel landscape. Inside the lead vehicle, the scar-faced man sat in silence, staring out the window. He wasn't just heading to a meeting, he was heading to seal an alliance that would make him untouchable, or so he believed. The desert meeting point was an abandoned French military outpost, half buried in sand. Rusted watchtowers leaned under the weight of years, and bullet holes scarred the walls. Armed men waited outside, their faces hidden behind turbans and goggles. These were mercenaries from outside Burkina Faso, paid to do the kind of work that no local soldier would dare. As the scar-faced man stepped out, a tall foreign commander greeted him with a brief nod. You're late, the commander said. I'm here. That's all that matters, the scar-faced man replied, tossing a small metal case onto the table between them. He opened it. Inside were blueprints, access codes, and security shift schedules for key government sites in Ouagadougou. Far away, in the capital, Captain Ibrahim Traoré was in the war room with his generals. A live feed from a reconnaissance drone displayed images of the very same desert outpost. They had tracked the convoy the moment it left the outskirts. "We have visual confirmation," an officer reported. "The meeting is happening now." Traoré leaned forward. "We strike tonight. No negotiations." But there was a problem. Intel showed there were more armed men in the area than initially thought, and among them, possibly foreign special operatives. A direct assault could turn into an international incident. Back at the desert outpost, the Whisper was there too, sitting quietly in a corner, drinking from a tin cup as if he belonged. No one suspected him. He had already sent another coded message to his secret contact. Both sides ready to move. Tensions at boiling point. Choose carefully. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the desert blood red, a squad of Burkina Faso's elite special forces began their silent approach toward the outpost. Neither the scar-faced man nor the foreign commander knew that in less than an hour, the quiet of the desert night would be shattered by gunfire, and that someone in that meeting would not live to see the morning. The desert wind howled as the night grew colder, carrying with it the faint smell of dust and diesel. Inside the outpost, the scar-faced man and the foreign commander continued their tense discussion over a flickering lantern. Maps were spread out, weapons were being checked, and the mercenaries kept their eyes on the dark horizon. The Whisper slipped away from the table under the pretense of checking the perimeter. In reality, he was planting a small, untraceable transmitter behind one of the supply crates. The device blinked twice, signal sent. Somewhere, miles away, inside the military compound, Traoré's intelligence team received the coordinates. In the command vehicle, Captain Traoré studied the live satellite feed. His special forces were now within a kilometer of the outpost, crawling low through the sand, rifles slung over their backs. Every movement was slow, deliberate. The desert was so silent that even the click of a safety catch could give them away. Inside the outpost, the scar-faced man glanced at his watch. "Once we move on Independence Day, there will be no turning back," he told the commander. The commander simply nodded, lighting a cigarette. The glow of the ember was the only light in the darkened courtyard. Suddenly, crack! A faint but distinct sound echoed in the distance. One of the mercenaries stiffened. He raised his rifle and peered into the night. "Something's out there." The scar-faced man ordered his guards to check. Two men moved toward the edge of the compound, disappearing into the darkness. They never returned. Moments later, a muffled thud sounded. One of the watchtowers went dark. The Whisper, now standing near the gate, felt his pulse quicken. He knew what was coming. Without a word, he slipped through a side passage, disappearing into the dunes. Then, chaos. A deafening explosion lit up the desert, throwing sand and debris into the air. Traoré's special forces stormed the compound, their night vision goggles glowing green as they moved with deadly precision. Gunfire erupted in all directions. Short, controlled bursts. The scar-faced man dove behind a stack of crates, returning fire with a pistol. The foreign commander barked orders in a language few understood, rallying his mercenaries to hold the gate. But Traoré's men were relentless, cutting through the defenders with surgical strikes. In the confusion, the Whisper's shadow reappeared. Only this time, he wasn't running. He was dragging something, a small black briefcase. And inside it was the one piece of evidence that could expose everyone involved. But just as he slipped out of the compound, a single shot rang out, and the Whisper collapsed into the sand. The briefcase rolled from his hand, stopping only a few meters away from the scar-faced man, who was now trying to flee toward a hidden vehicle. What no one realized was that Traoré himself was already inside the compound, moving toward that very briefcase. The convoy rolled into Ouagadougou under the pale light of dawn. The city was still asleep, but in the presidential compound, the war room was already buzzing. Intelligence officers hunched over computers, analysts spread maps across tables, and the air smelled of strong coffee and urgency. Traoré stepped inside, still in his dust-covered combat gear, the black briefcase in one hand. The room fell silent. Without a word, he placed it on the table and opened it for everyone to see. Gasps followed. The papers inside didn't just detail the Independence Day attack. They revealed names. High-profile politicians, business tycoons, and even foreign diplomats who had been quietly funding unrest in Burkina Faso. Some of those names were people who had publicly posed as Traoré's allies. One general leaned in, scanning the documents. "Sir, if this is true, the rot goes deeper than we imagined. Some of these people have been in power for decades." Traoré's eyes hardened. "Then we cut them out, root and stem." But even as he spoke, a young communications officer rushed in, holding a tablet. "Captain, you need to see this." On the screen was a live news broadcast from a major foreign network. The anchor was speaking over shaky footage that appeared to have been filmed at the desert outpost. Only in this version, the story was twisted, claiming Traoré had led an unprovoked attack on peaceful tribal leaders, accusing him of committing human rights abuses and destabilizing the region. Within minutes, the smear campaign spread across social media. Hashtags calling for his resignation began trending internationally. Foreign embassies released statements condemning the reckless use of force. Traoré slammed his fist on the table. "They're trying to flip the narrative before we can expose the truth." An older intelligence officer cleared his throat. "Sir, whoever is behind this controls not just mercenaries, but media, money, and influence at the highest levels. They will come at you from every angle." Traoré knew the man was right. Taking down armed enemies in the desert was one thing. Fighting an invisible network that could turn the world against him was another. Still, he straightened his shoulders. "Then we move faster. Before they can bury us in lies, we'll bury them in the truth." But somewhere far away, in a glass tower overlooking a foreign capital, a figure watched the news coverage with a satisfied smile. This was the real mastermind, untouched by the desert's heat, untouched by bullets, already planning the next move to crush Traoré without ever setting foot in Burkina Faso. And for the first time since the stadium reopening, Captain Ibrahim Traoré realized the war he had just stepped into had no front lines. Back in Ouagadougou, Traoré called a press conference. With the documents from the desert outpost in hand, he revealed the conspiracy to the world. Names, plans, and international backers. The global narrative shifted. People saw the truth, and the smear campaign collapsed under the weight of evidence. The scar-faced mercenaries and their foreign backers were exposed, arrested, or forced into hiding. The whisper, whose loyalties had been unclear, vanished, leaving only unanswered questions about the unseen players in the shadows. Traoré, however, knew this was only a battle won, not the war itself. He addressed the nation in a solemn speech. "True strength does not come from the weapons we hold or the power we command. It comes from standing firm, acting with integrity, and protecting the people we serve. Corruption, lies, and fear may surround us, but courage and truth will always light the path forward." The stadium that had once been a symbol of celebration now represented resilience and vigilance. Traoré had defended his people not just with force, but with wisdom and determination. Leadership is not about seeking glory. It's about courage in the face of danger, integrity amidst deceit, and the willingness to protect what is right, even when the enemies are hidden in plain sight. True strength lies in the combination of action and wisdom, and in always putting the welfare of others above personal ambition.